YouTube, how you doing? Murph here, bringing you another product review. Today's review is going to be on the Corsair K65 RGB Mini. It's the newest keyboard offering from Corsair, and it is in a 60% compact form factor. This keyboard retails for $109, and we're gonna get into all the features that it has for that price point. But as always, we're gonna start off by talking about the design and build quality. I really like the design overall. It comes in at 11.6 inches long by 4.1 inches wide. And with the cable attached, I have it coming in at 573 grams. So it's a pretty light keyboard, which could be a positive or a negative depending on how you look at it. It's got very slim bezels, which I prefer on a compact keyboard. It's got very minimal branding with only the Corsair logo printed in the top and a little K65 printed on the side there. This board does come with double shot PBT keycaps, which are going to be very strong and durable. They should last you for the life of the keyboard. And I really like the legends that are printed on this board. They're very bold, crisp, clear, easy to read. A little bit of a gamery font, especially when it comes to the numbers and the symbols up top. But overall, I really like the legends on these keycaps. It does come with an ABS spacebar that kind of has these triangles printed all over it. Overall, I like the design of the spacebar as well. It does come with a plain black double shot PBT spacebar if you prefer that. And it also comes with a Corsair logo escape key if that's something that you want to add to your board. It does come with those as well as a keycap removal tool, so you can easily switch those out. As with other 60% keyboards, you're losing that function row, you're losing, your home, your page up, page down, delete, all of those keys, as well as your numpad. But as is common with most other 60% keyboards, you're retaining a lot of that functionality with that function layer that you have here. And you can see this keyboard has front printed legends that are also very large and easy to read. There's also quite a few of them, all of the things that you can expect from a 60% keyboard, as well as the ability to control your lighting functions and your volume controls, everything right here from your keyboard. One thing to note here is it does not have height adjustable feet. You're left with those rubber pads there. Again, might not be a big deal to some, but a lot of people do like those height adjustable feet to be able to adjust the typing angle of their keyboard, and this does not have that. The LEDs that are on this are really good. They're bright, they're vibrant. You can see the spacebar actually has 3 separate LEDs under here so that you don't get kind of that fading out towards the end of the spacebar. Everything's lit up really well, and that's all I've really got for the design. Now for the build quality, which is where we're going to spend the majority of this video, and as you'll see, that's not necessarily a good thing, but the way I normally structure my videos, I typically talk about the build quality and then move into talking about the switches and the switch options, and I give you guys a sound test. But for this board in particular, I'm gonna kind of lump all that in together because I think the build quality kind of ties in to the whole feeling of this keyboard, as well as the sound profile and the sound signature that you get from this board. So talking about the switches real quick, this is offered in 3 different switch types: Cherry MX Red, Cherry MX Silent Red, and Cherry MX Speed Silvers, which is what I have for you here today on this model. So really tried and true switches. The stabilizers on this keyboard also come pre-lubed from the factory. That's becoming more and more commonplace with these pre-built keyboards, although typically it's not very well executed. So real quick, just a sound test for you. Pay close attention to these stabilizers as well. Now, if you're into keyboards, and I'm not even talking an enthusiast here, just if you can appreciate how a keyboard sounds and feels, that's pretty much like nails down a chalkboard for you. Just a really hollow, clacky sound to these keys. And these stabilizers are pre-lubed from the factory. but just nothing to write home about at all. Also, I don't know how well my microphone will pick this up, but if I depress these keys right here and then release, I don't know how well that microphone's gonna pick that up, but there is quite a bit of spring ping on pretty much all of these keys. Now, the hollowness that you hear could easily be solved with a little bit of foam or even some kind of felt. Just anything in that case to really take up space and absorb some of that sound could really go a long way here. This is not a hot swap board, so you're not going to be able to easily remove these switches and lube them up or lube those springs or anything like that. So for the most part, unless you're willing to get in here and tear this whole thing apart, desolder and solder these switches, what you see is what you get here, and it's just not a great sounding board. Now, I'm very familiar with Cherry MX Speed Silver switches. They're actually one of my favorite switches, especially from the Cherry MX line. And not only is this not the typical sound experience that you can expect from these, even in a plastic case, it even just feels a little bit different. The typing experience on this keyboard is very, very average. It's not terrible. I've seen worse, but at $109, I'm just not very pleased with the typing experience of this keyboard. Keep in mind, this is pretty expensive, and again, we're not talking enthusiast level boards where you can spend hundreds of dollars, but for a 60% keyboard, this is towards the top end of the pre-built market. This is up there with the Ducky 1.2 Mini, the HyperX Alloy Origins 60, the Razer Huntsman Mini. This is even a notch above like the Red Dragon K530 and the GK61. And as far as typing experience goes, I would probably recommend any of those boards I just named over this one. I think the biggest disappointment here is Corsair is not shipping these, at least not yet, with their OPX switches, which were first introduced on their K100 keyboard last year. That was actually one of my favorite keyboards of 2020. I'm not one to typically use a full-size keyboard, and it was a very large keyboard. Even for a full-size board, it was huge. But it was made of very high-quality materials. It was heavy. It felt great. The RGB on it was fantastic. And really the star of the show was their OPX switches, which got very good reviews from pretty much everybody. They felt good, they sounded good, and they had really great performance. And typically when a company drops a switch like that, they are eager to put it into every new product, especially higher end product that they produce. And the fact that they didn't put it in here is frankly kind of confusing to me. I'm not really sure why they made that decision or if they are going to bring those switches to this keyboard eventually. But I remember using the K100 and thinking to myself, this is a great keyboard. It's one of the best keyboards that I used last year. And my first thought was, if they came out with a 60, 65% or even a TKL version of this keyboard right here, I would buy it immediately. It might even replace my other keyboards as my daily driver keyboard. And I was really hoping that when they announced this board that that's what we would be getting, and it's just not. Not only did it not come with an aluminum frame or anything like that, which is fine, but to not put their OPX switches in this board, I think that's a big mistake. Now, to move away from kind of the negatives of this keyboard and really come to the next part of this review is their software. The iCUE software, in my opinion, is some of the best software for gaming accessories. It's right up there with Razer Synapse and Chroma Studio and all of that. I think Razer and Corsair have two of the best software options for gaming peripherals out there. So moving along into the software, once you download the Corsair iCUE software, this is what you're going to be presented with. And you can see your K65 is going to show up here. And this is where you're going to control the macros and all the RGB functions and all of that kind of stuff. Now, this keyboard does have onboard memory where you can store multiple profiles, and you can also assign your key assignments, which is basically just your macros, and your lighting via hardware so that it saves directly to the board, or you can do it all through software as well. I'm going to actually start on the bottom of the list here. Device settings. This is where you are going to change your polling rate. It's set to 1000 by default just to avoid any compatibility issues. but you can change this all the way up to 8,000 hertz. I think I'm going to do a separate video kind of describing what polling rate is and what kind of effect it has on gaming accessories, just because these gaming keyboards and mice are starting to release with higher and higher polling rates. But realistically, you'll be fine at 1,000 hertz, and you can also select pretty much anything in between. I'm gonna keep mine on 1,000 hertz for the remainder of this video, and this is where you are gonna add profiles for your onboard memory. Now, performance, not a lot of people are gonna worry about this tab. You can just enable and disable certain keystrokes here, especially like the Windows key, which other keyboards refer to as game mode. You can do that kind of stuff here. Key assignments, this is where you're going to assign your macros. It's very easy, very intuitive if that's what you decide to do on your keyboard. And what most of you are going to care about are the lighting effects. Now this has lighting layers, which is very similar to what we saw on the HyperX Origins Alloy 60. And essentially what that's going to allow you to do is to make multiple adjustments to your lighting. So for example, if you wanted to make half of the keyboard red and half of the keyboard blue, you can do that. If you wanted to split it into thirds, you can do that. And you can even come in here and individually select the LED that you want and apply a color or effect to that. But just to run through some of these presets here, you can turn the lighting off, or you can come in here and there's a few presets that you have. This is Spiral Rainbow. This is Rainbow Wave, which is what I leave mine on by default. You've got Color Shift. You've got Color Pulse. You've got Color Wave. And for all of these, you can adjust the speed. Some of these you can adjust the direction that it's flowing in. If you want to assign a specific color instead of random colors, you can do all that here. And it's also got quick lighting zones. So if you don't want to select individual keys or grouping of keys, this kind of makes it easier because you can just apply these effects to a couple of predefined keys here. You've got Visor, Rain, Type Lighting, which is basically a reactive mode. And you've got Corsair Audio Visualizer, which is just going to react if you have any music or anything playing in the background, it'll react to that. And you have Watercolor. And that's it for the software. Very easy to use, very intuitive. Basically what you can expect from Corsair iCUE software. Now the question remains, would I recommend this keyboard? Obviously the answer is no, especially at this price point. There are so many good compact keyboards on the market right now, especially in this price range of $80 to $130 or so. And when you're this late to the game like Corsair is, you've really got to come out swinging, and they just didn't do that for this keyboard. Two simple changes could have been made to make this a much more viable option. The first being adding some type of soundproofing material or just really any kind of material in that case to take up space and give this a little bit better of a sound signature. And the other is very obvious, and that's bringing their OPX switches to this keyboard. I think that's the most disappointing thing here, and that's a huge swing and a miss by Corsair. There's a lot of alternatives here, the Ducky 1-2 Mini, the Razer Huntsman Mini, both in this price range. You've got even cheaper boards that are very similar, if not even a little bit better in terms of build quality, switch options, etc., which is going to be things like the Red Dragon K530 and the GK61, two of my favorite mid-range compact keyboards. And one of the keyboards that's quickly becoming my go-to for anyone looking for a 60% keyboard in the $100 price range, which is the HyperX Alloy Origins 60, which has their own in-house switches, which you may or may not be a fan of, but essentially they're very similar to Cherry MX style switches. And I reviewed that keyboard a few weeks ago, and I was really impressed by those switches. And you're also getting similar quality keycaps, a higher quality aluminum case, and just a better sounding and feeling typing experience. and that board was $10 cheaper than this. And it also had a pretty solid software option itself. So very saturated market here. When you're coming out with a new board in 2021, especially in this price range, you've got to bring your A game, and Corsair just didn't do that here. And that's kind of disappointing to say because I love Corsair products. Just in case you think I'm hating on Corsair, I love Corsair keyboards. I think they're a great gaming company. If you're already unfamiliar, they bought Elgato, and Elgato makes some of the best streaming products on the market. I love what they've done with that company. I'm a big fan of the K100. It's one of the best full-size pre-built keyboards on the market, in my opinion. And even their headsets, my go-to headset are these right here, the Corsair Virtuosos. So I'm a huge fan of Corsair products, but this right here is just not it. Certainly not at $109. And that pretty much wraps up this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful. As always, links to my socials are in the description down below. But if you follow anything, join that Discord server. It's a one-stop shop for this channel. And you'll also be the first to be notified of any giveaways that are going on, which are going to start up very soon. Ducky12 Mini is going to be given away on this channel soon, as well as some keycap sets. If you guys are interested in any of that, make sure to join the Discord server. And if you want to see other content like this, such as product reviews or streaming tutorials, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And YouTube, we'll catch you later.